Hey, welcome to What the Flick, everybody. It's just the two of us, Ben and Match.
That works.
Ben and Matt Atchity. TYT's head of programming, taking time away from his busy schedule to join us here on What the Flick. But we have a big movie to talk about this week.
Yes.
And I'm confused by the reaction to it, not negative or positive. I'm confused by the chatter about it and people being seemingly on Twitter afraid to share their reaction because they're going to get, I don't even know what, I don't quite know what's understand, but a lot of people on Twitter like, I saw Dunkirk, I'm just gonna keep it to myself.
Ooh.
I don't, what's the deal?
So the deal is,
right,
so here's the
subtext here.
So the subtext is, Christopher Nolan did 3 Batman movies, and they're very good. No one is as obsessive as Batman fans. Yes, I'm talking to the Batman fans. Look, those are great movies, but God forbid you don't like one of those movies because then you're a terrible person. And that has, I think, come out and kind of washed over into the rest of Christopher Nolan's oeuvre. So I think the obsessive Bat fans, and again, really seriously, read the book called The Caped Crusade. Great book about just fandom around Batman, real interesting, and how that obsession has colored modern filmmaking via how the internet has reacted to things. So I think that obsession, the type of person that is obsessed with Batman has now become obsessed with Christopher Nolan because he is the standard bearer for a good Batman movie. And so, yeah, that's my, I'm sure, look, I know people are gonna be like, no, you're wrong, that's crazy, it's all about Nolan, but look, Nolan's a great filmmaker, and I think that this is a really interesting movie. Has he made bad movies? I would say Interstellar is a mess, but we're not here to review Interstellar. We're here to review Dunkirk, which I think is really effective and really good.
Yeah, it's the whole concept, that whole conversation surprised me.
Yeah, this is why we can't have nice things.
That's right. Okay, so let's review Dunkirk.
Yeah.
Why don't you?
Sure, so Dunkirk is about the Dunkirk evacuation. At the beginning of World War II, the British and French forces were surrounded on the coast of the English Channel by Nazi forces and were hoping for an evacuation. The German forces were giving them a lot of trouble, very little air support, very little naval support, and 400,000 men trapped really on the coastline, expecting to die possibly.
Or at a bare minimum be captured.
Yeah. And this was the story of the attempt to rescue them and how they and kind of the civilian populace of Britain helped attempt to rescue them. Watch the trailer.
The enemy tanks have stopped.
Why?
Why waste precious tanks when they can pick us off from the air like fish in a barrel?
Yeah, so first of all, this movie starts. It doesn't spend a lot of time introducing you to characters. My father.
And if by a lot of time, you mean no time.
That's right. My father would have spent most of Dunkirk saying, wait, who's that guy? Wait, who's that guy?
Right.
Which one is he? And my dad would have been right. It is hard to tell them apart. They take their hats off. They can't understand. I'm saying. There's a tremendous amount of that. You could have used subtitles until you realized he's expressing fear, right?
Right.
He's mad at that guy. They don't know how they're gonna get out of here.
Right, there's a group of infantrymen on the beach that over the course of the movie, like they're all dark hair, they all kind of have the same haircut, they all end up dirty, and it really does get hard to tell them all apart.
Yeah, and I think there's some point in that.
Fine.
There's a degree of they're all the same. And, but even the characters we follow, I had trouble following. There's a character from another land involved in there, and I had trouble telling which one was him. People make decisions that certainly aren't explained. There's maybe, how long is a 2-hour movie generally? How many pages of dialogue? Like a 2-hour
Probably
script?
about 120 pages.
Yeah, so like
right?
120 pages is a standard script. Obviously, some are more, some are a little less. This had like 20 pages of dialogue, 25 pages.
Yeah,
There's
it's
not,
very sparse.
very sparse, but there's but don't think that there's nothing silent about this. There's
No.
tremendous sound throughout the movie.
No, and at times, you speak of the sound, at times the sound and sound effects are hard to separate out. Like the music and the sound effects, I mean to say, start to blend together. There's times you're like, is that a plane? Is that the music?
And
right?
Yeah, and they do when you hear a plane, when a German plane is going to strafe the beach or bomb the boats trying to come rescue the soldiers, you'll get the characters will note it first.
Yeah.
Right, they're like looking and you have nothing. You have no sound. Like, what is he looking at? What is he hearing? And then very, very slowly you start to hear the buzz.
I found this to be a really powerful movie. I found it really immersive, and it's an interesting choice that you don't really get to know the characters. And you really only get any bit of a background on one character. You only really get the hopes and dreams kind of one particular character. And I thought that not knowing these characters, it becomes this really interesting exercise in how much suspense can Nolan make you feel over people you don't know.
That's right.
Right? And it's so suspenseful. There's times I felt like it's a tone similar to what you see in a lot of horror movies where something terrible is gonna happen. There's a lot of fear in this movie. And that's heightened because you never really see any of the enemy, right? You may see you see planes, you see German planes. And that's about it, right?
Yeah,
like you don't see, there's shots coming in, the people get shot at, you don't see who's shooting. Boats get hit by torpedoes. You don't see where the torpedoes come from.
You don't see a German helmet until like the last frame of the movie, and that is largely irrelevant, I think.
I may have missed that. I'm not sure that yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll explain it to you. It's meaningless.
Okay.
It's just, you don't see a German.
Oh, you're right. Okay, yeah, right. Yeah, now, yeah. Yeah, but apart from that, like that's pretty much the first time you actually see any. Right, I don't want to spoil anything. I found this a really effective movie, and it is an interesting, again, exercise in hitting you with suspense. And it is this really kind of amazing story of how all these guys, you get these characters worrying about, what everyone else is going to think of them. Good performances. From Kenneth Branagh as kind of the admiral.
Yeah, he's Kenneth Branagh. He's the admiral on the beach. Tom Hardy is fighter pilot.
Tom Hardy, who you see like maybe 150 frames total of his face, and then the rest of it he's in a mask. It's like, oh look, it's Bane again.
It's Bane.
Pilot Bane.
Pilot Bane. And his conversations with his flying buddy. I mean.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. But I cannot understand them. I could not understand what they were saying. Except if they'd be like, all right then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd get a little of that.
Well, they're all just very matter of fact.
Yeah.
Right? And it's
right, they're very professional.
Right.
The pilots are professional. The famous story of British civilians coming over to try to rescue the men stranded at Dunkirk with private ships. They're very professional. These are men of the sea, and they know this is what they do. And obviously there's some tension, there's some little stories built inside those little boats, but overall, this is a grand story of a failure, of a military failure, of a British defeat. British were defeated at Dunkirk, and they had hightail and run. They had to retreat, had to run away, and it was just going to be how they were going to exercise that retreat, and then it led to Winston Churchill's great speech about we'll fight them on the beaches, we'll fight them in the air, we'll fight them in the cities, and that turning this terrible, terrible military defeat into sort of a moment to attempt to turn the war around.
And there's some interesting different perspectives because especially from, you get the guys on the beach who from time to time, like they express a despair that there's a lack of air support or a lack of naval support. And James Darcy, as kind of the army commander, expresses that a fair amount. And Kenneth Branagh, there's a moment where they talk about, well, why not send more ships, right? And Branagh, and he's very kind of philosophical about this, and he seems to understand. And it's this interesting moment where he says, they're saving them for the next battle.
Right.
And he's kind of okay with that. And it's that attitude of like,
this one may be,
this may be it.
Right.
And that was, you get this, what I thought was great about this movie is without knowing these characters, you still get this perspective and you get this understanding of what's important and this like desperate bid for survival and this hope and this despair. And you see some of these characters do things that are, you can't help but wonder like what would happen. And then you see the guy like walk into the ocean, which is in the trailer. So we're not really spoiling anything.
Yeah.
Which Nolan has said like that's based on a story,
I'm sure
stories he's been told by some veterans of that battle.
I thought if there was one thing missing, it was more of that, in that we saw that guy walk into the ocean, he's frustrated. He assumes he's gonna die here on the beach and he's gonna die his way. That there's some humanity in that. I thought that I needed a little more time, and there was time in this movie. It's like an hour 47. It could have had 8 to 12 more minutes without.
This is a short film from Christopher Nolan.
Just more moments of what it was like on the beach. I've read some reviews that say that he captured that perfectly. There's a lot of standing around. Again, there are 400,000 troops there on the beach, and we get to know at any one time 12 of them, right? Really focusing on just a couple. But I don't know, some of that despair, some of that frustration, it came out in a couple of moments. But I thought that was, if I have any criticism, it's that was lacking. Like, where did that guy walking into the beach, if I had a little more background on some of that emotional agony that they were going through, that might have delivered a little more, where it seemed like, oh, there's somebody I don't know killing themselves.
Right.
But maybe or I could be wrong on that. But I thought that getting inside the heads of that sense of we've been left, because it was really a lot of guys standing in rows, right? There was a lot of guys standing in rows as if something was coming, right? When there's nothing coming.
Yeah, I had less of an issue with that and more about, I expected a little bit more of a sense of relief. And I'm trying not to spoil this, but if you know your history, you know what happens. For the people that do make it, I felt that there's less, and maybe this is an intention on the part of Nolan, in that as you're immersed in who these characters are or what they're going through, the ones that make it back to England it was more of a daze that I think that gets communicated by the film than any sense of relief, right? And I guess I would have expected a little bit more of a sense of like, and it's more kind of shock, which again, understandably, a lot of people, and I guess I don't know how I feel about this, but after something like that, yeah, you're gonna be in shock. You're gonna be in a daze. So
there weren't a lot of battle scenes, right?
No.
One of the things the movie opens, there is one, bang, right off.
Right.
You don't even know who these guys are, and you don't see who's shooting at them, but people are shooting at them, and it's terrifying.
Right.
But then that's over, and we're on the beach. I don't know. I guess I expected a little bit more.
I guess it's not about the battle though, right?
No,
like it's about the evacuation.
It's about the evacuation. Yeah, no question. So I would say that what keeps me from thinking that this was a 10 was a sense that I felt like something was missing. But I could not walk away from this and say I didn't love it. I did.
Yeah.
It was very powerful. A lot of talk about how the award season has begun, and sort of silly to talk about that in July, because we know what's coming, what always comes in the fall. But this is a terrific movie. This is a terrific movie. As I said on Twitter, it's no Shakespeare in Love, but it's a terrific movie, and a different kind of war movie. And it's Nolan, and he does really interesting linear tricks here.
Yeah.
They're not like certainly not like Memento, and they are. I mean, he'll show you something, and then he'll show you something from another perspective 3 minutes later.
Yeah.
And you don't know what it is, right? You're like, oh wow, that's the guy we just saw in the plane, right? We're seeing the end of that, and I think that was really cool.
Yeah, I think this is a terrific movie. I feel like there's a little bit of an emotional impact. Like there's still, and this is a thing that I think Nolan does a lot, there's still a little bit of like distance between the subjects sometimes. And for all of the feeling of terror and fear, I still felt a little, there's like almost an aloofness.
I agree. Yeah, and maybe that's what I'm saying when there weren't a lot of battle scenes, like moments of, there was an early sheer terror in the beginning, and there's another scene that's terrifying in the boat. They're in a boat, and we don't even know who's shooting at them.
In it, and people will bring up this comparison. Saving Private Ryan, by the end of Saving Private Ryan, like now granted, you have a lot more time to get to know those characters, but by the end of Private Ryan, you're devastated. You are emotionally devastated. And the difference with this is that you're wrung out, but it's because he's been playing you like a violin as far as fear and despair and suspense. And the difference is, like, I can think of particular lines and particular characters dying and how you feel for them in Saving Private Ryan, or even something like, moments that I was near tears with Ewan Bremner in Black Hawk Down. Spoiler alert, but as opposed to here where I just feel a little reserved, but it's still like, it's very, very effective, and it's just kind of splitting hairs there.
And maybe there's something British to that.
Yeah,
too.
maybe.
But you're not gonna, you don't.
Yeah, I mean, if you consider like what happens with Mark Rylance's character, okay, well then maybe we are asking for a little much because.
And we don't. You don't get that same sort of emotional arc with the life and death of characters. Again, that certainly might be the point, but you also don't get the hokiness that, I mean, I love Saving Private Ryan, and again, as referenced by the Shakespeare in Love line, it's a great sin that the Academy made that mistake. But Saving Private Ryan couldn't help but bookend some hokiness on a great war movie. There's not an ounce of hokiness.
You're right.
Yeah,
you're right. So what's your score?
8.8. It's terrific.
I'm right there with you. I give it a 9.
Yeah. I just give it a 9. It's a 9. Let's give it a 9. Let's not mess around.
So what's the average?
8.7. Yeah. All right. So yeah, it's a 9. It's terrific, and I know some people don't dig it, and some people I like don't dig it, and I don't understand. I don't understand it. But that's but it's doing pretty well right now, right?
As far as I know. I don't know. I'm not in charge of that site anymore.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's most critics like it.
All right. Okay. We'll when others are back, we may talk about it more.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a movie worth talking about it, and see it. I saw it on.
See it on a big screen.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah,
it,
don't watch it on your phone.
IMAX. It was great. And there's 70 millimeter IMAX screenings. I don't know if I got one.
I saw it in 70 millimeter.
Yeah, I think I did too.
But yeah, see it on a big screen, because otherwise Chris Nolan will get mad at you.